to introduce myself. I'm Susu Wong. I'm one of the co-founders of Women Accelerators. For those of you who don't know who Women Accelerators is, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that's passionate about promoting women and the advancement of women. We are founded in 2011, and we're focused on giving women the tools that they need to be successful in advancing their careers. And how do we do that? We have monthly educational programs, such as the ones that you're having today. We have social events. Before COVID, we actually have happy hours and fun networking events. We have an annual mentoring program, which started in January, and it goes all the way to June. It's a one-on-one mentoring program. And we have just launched a brand new program called the Women Leadership Coaching Program by Executive Coach Kim Menninger. And we started that in March, and it'll be end in May. So it's a 3-month program. Our next meeting will be on May 25th at noon. And the topic will be executive presence for women in life sciences. And it will be by a group called Leadership Edge. And so please sign up for that. And I also want to acknowledge the generous sponsorship of DCU Credit Union. DCU is headquartered in Marlborough, Mass. And it is the largest credit union that is headquartered in New England, and it's among the top 20 nationwide. So we're very thankful for the sponsorship for sponsoring programs such as today, and also will go towards our scholarship program. And the second thing is I'd like to thank the UMass Lowell Innovation Hub for helping us to promote and also partnering with us on this program. We've been partnering with them for the last few years, and we're just so happy to have them. And now let me turn to Calandra Washington, who is the event coordinator from the Innovation Hub. Calandra?
Hi, thank you so much, Sue. Yes, I am Calandra Washington, and I'm the event coordinator of the UMass Lowell Innovation Hub. Thank you for joining us today in Women Accelerators. We're happy to have Barbara Russell. We're so excited to hear her speak. Happy to virtually meet you all. We also have Lisa Armstrong here as our Associate Director of the Innovation Hub. Very happy to have her on call as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Like Calandra said, I'm Lisa Armstrong, and I am in the Innovation Hub in Lowell. Just to share with you that we do have 2 locations, Lowell and also in Haverhill. My colleague from Haverhill asked me to share a little bit of information about an event happening tonight. It's a focus on pitching. So I just thought I would let you know that at 6:30 tonight, Haverhill will present the Digital Equity Challenge. They have 6 finalist teams that will pitch their ideas and projects around improving digital access and digital literacy in our communities. You can attend in person, or you can tune into the live stream and watch their pitches to see who will win the top prizes, which are pretty impressive. I will put in the chat a link to the live stream and a way to register if you feel like doing something fun tonight. I'm sure they'd be happy to have you. So thank you and welcome to everybody joining us today.
Yeah, I just also like to say a few words about the Innovation Hub here at Lowell specifically. We're a premier shared co-working space. We serve early stage technology companies, entrepreneurs, startups, and small businesses with office space, flexible co-working space, programs and events, as well as many resources to support entrepreneurs, including a direct link to the UML resources. If anyone would like more information about the Innovation Hub, I'll drop a link for our website in the chat. We often invite distinguished guest speakers to join us to discuss many different topics, and today we are fortunate to have an amazing pitch expert, Barbara Russell. We are recording the session, so as you guys saw from the notification, we'll share a link with you in case you're not able to stay on with us for the entire time. We encourage you to use the chat feature during the session for any questions or comments. Feel free to share with us where you're from if you haven't already, or share again for the people who just came in. The one benefit of virtual programming is that we have people join us from all over the world, and that's really neat. With that, it's my pleasure to tell you a bit about our speaker, Barbara Dalton Russell, co-founder of CapW, an advisory investment banking firm focused on early and mid-stage tech-enabled companies, characterized by strong female and or POC founders and teams, solving big problems with massive market opportunities. In her role as managing partner, she strives to advance the ability of tech-based companies and providing strategic advice that maximizes the ability of these companies to scale via targeted advertising. Barbara serves on the board of several rapidly scaling early and mid-stage companies, providing advice fueled from her 31 years of experience in private equity, investment banking, and capital markets. She also serves on multiple nonprofit boards. Barbara serves as an adjunct professor at the UMass Lowell, where she teaches 2 undergraduate courses in entrepreneurship. She has been a senior lecturer at MIT Sloan School, Babson College, Boston University, just to name a few. Since the outbreak of COVID, she's been very busy. In addition to continuing to invest and raise capital during this pandemic, she just completed serving as a judge in her 22nd pitch competition, virtually since COVID began. Thank you all again for joining us today. And now I'll turn it over to Barbara for this. I know it's going to be an amazing presentation.
Thank you very much. I hope I can live up to that incredible intro. In any case, I am going to share my screen. It's great to be here with all of you today. Let me share my screen. It's disabled. You guys need to give me permission to share my screen. Okay. So I'm not exactly sure who all of you are, but there's one thing I know. Even if you're not starting a business, or you're not in the midst of starting a business, or you don't plan on starting a business, pitching is really important, because we're going to do it for the rest of our lives, regardless of whether you go into investment banking, or you go to work for Google or Apple or Tesla. Pitching is what we do every day, right? You have to pitch to your boss, or you have to sell an idea to someone. So I think that most of you are on this call because you really do want to learn how to write a great pitch deck. I do it for a living. When I have a new client, which is typically a tech company, maybe in Boston, hopefully woman-led or minority-led, we deconstruct their pitch.
Barbara, just one sec. We're seeing a screen with I think it's not the right screen. We're seeing a Zoom screen with all the participants.
You're not seeing what makes a winning pitch at a pitch competition?
No.
Let's try that again. How's that?
Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
the same.
Same.
Oh.
It looks fine to me. Can you forward? Yeah. Can you move to the next slide, Barbara, and see if it works?
No, it's not working. Huh. Yeah, it's working.
Oh, there you go. It's just a little slow. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
In any case, so what I want to do today is go through, we see some great companies that come into our door. So I help companies raise capital, but I also invest in a lot of businesses. And as my intro mentioned, I actually just did my 32nd pitch competition. Last week, I spent the week at Rice University, which is the biggest pitch competition in the world in terms of the amount of people that apply and the amount of prize money, millions of dollars. The companies that win aren't necessarily the best investment opportunities. They typically are the students that have the best pitches. It can't be a crummy company, but the differentiator from the top companies are the ones that have really polished their pitch. They know how to stand up, they know how to deliver, and they know how to write a great deck. So today I wanted to go through what makes a great pitch deck. So I don't want to read what's on the screen, but people say, yeah, pitch deck really is, it's a subjective discussion.
Not quite on Wi-Fi. I'm listening to this anyways.
Someone should mute. In any case, it isn't subjective. There are key elements that make a great pitch. And I want to teach that to you today. I want to show you what I think is a good pitch deck, the elements, and then I'm going to show you some of the most famous companies in the world, like Uber and Facebook, and show you their original pitch decks. And I want you all crowdsourced to tell me whether you think it's a good pitch deck or not, based on what we discussed today. Susu, can you remind me what's our time limit today? Because I want to leave time for a lot of Q&A.
I think you can have it up to 12:50, and we'll have 10 minutes of Q&A. Does that sound
All right.
good, Barbara?
Okay, sure. I don't want to drone on. I really like the engagement and the back and forth toward the end. So I'm going to just go through the deck, and then you can put questions in the chat, or I guess you can interrupt. I don't care. All right. So I want to go through key elements. I call it the steak and the sizzle, right? The steak is what is really in the deck. It's not just the polish. It's what's the underpinnings in the company. And we're going to go through the 6 or 7 elements that you're going to have to cover. And then we're going to go through the good, the bad, and the ugly of the most famous pitch decks in the world. Okay, so let's start at a pitch competition. You know, I judged the UMass Lowell pitch competition this year, and again, the winners I guess it was Holly Lalos's difference maker pitch. The winners were, there was a team of guys that stood up, and they were almost like they were like rock stars. They had rehearsed it, they tag teamed. They have probably a really good company, but I knew they were going to win because they just nailed it, right? So I want everyone to do that today. But underneath, to win a really big pitch competition and get a lot of dough in that pitch competition, you have to have all of the key elements covered, and we're going to go through that. And then communicate it. Again, the kids, the rock stars, rehearsed it. Okay. How to get yes. So my role is not just to judge pitch competitions, but it's to get our clients in front of venture capitalists, a lot of them in Boston and New York. And we know how the venture capitalists think and how to get them to write a check and say, I love this. Okay, so the steak is the substance that we're going to talk about today. And then the sizzle is how you do it, how you stand up in your feet and blow everybody's hair back. Okay. Right. So you can't just dazzle, as I said, you got to have the underpinnings. So you tell a story. Authenticity is at the heart of what makes a great company successful, and also what makes a pitch successful. It's much better to provide context. Why did I do this? For instance, we at Techstars, where I'm a judge and a mentor, there was a woman that stood up and said, I had melanoma. And she told this story, and she was about 28 years old. And that's why she created a business where you can use your phone and take a picture of whatever's on your skin and send it to a doctor. And there's millions, almost millions now, of images that in a machine learning engine that will analyze whatever is on your skin. But she told a story, and she sunk a hook and grabbed us right from the get-go. And she's been a major success. Okay, so you tell your story, why you went after a problem. Okay, and you do it in a riveting way. It's the best thing we always recommend. It's hard to well, how do I tell a pitch? And I say, well, sometimes you could do it as if you're Thanksgiving dinner and you have an aunt that says, so what are you doing? Why are you starting this company? And it's natural. You'll tell her, well, I always thought that taxi lines are too long. So I thought I would use geopositioning, and I started something called Uber, right? The other thing to do is watch TED Talks. It is one of the greatest resources for how to communicate effectively. You can read every book, and you can actually spend money on pitch coaches. Watching TED Talks is a really efficient way to learn how to talk and pitch. Okay. So when you open up and you start why you stand up in front of people, and when you're they say, okay, we'll have 20 slides, we'll give you 10 minutes to pitch, which is what we do at these pitch competitions. You spend the first part of your pitch telling this story efficiently and crisply. Okay, so now we're in the weeds. One of the biggest misses on founders' pitches is they don't say from the get-go what problem they're solving. I'm not going to mention names, but this year I have 2 graduate courses, actually. I did undergraduate last year. And our job was to find the most promising labs inside of UMass and sick our grad students on them and say, I want you to figure out why this company is so promising. It hasn't left the university yet, right? It's still in a lab. And I want you to write a pitch deck. It was so hard for them to figure out, you got to find out why the professor, why this lab, why these postdocs started a business. So you have to figure out why they started it and what problem they were solving. And it's got to be a big problem. It's got to give you a migraine headache. Okay. And then, are there enough people that want to buy it and pay for it? So the market has to be big enough so that the company can make money, unless you're not for profit. And that's an entirely different discussion than we're going to have today. So we're talking really about pitching. We can talk about any company, right? But what we really are focused on is companies that could scale rapidly. So it has to have a big market. And then, who are you? Who are you to solve this problem? Tell me who you are. Tell me who your team is. Okay. So we're going to talk about a problem, solution, is the market big enough, and who are you? Because that sounds a little bit audacious, but that's how VCs talk to you. Prove to me that you know what you're doing. Okay. So stating the problem, what led you to create the business, and there is an aha moment. Most of us have been somewhere, standing in a line, maybe at a grocery store, and saying, why isn't this automated? Why can't I do what the new Amazon stores are doing, or the new, tech forward retailers are doing, where I can just scan and walk through and just leave, right? You hated standing online. That's probably how someone invented these, the checkout aisles, self-serve checkout aisles in the grocery stores. It was like, I cannot stand on this line anymore. That's how innovations occur. Of course, in the biotech industry, it's a little different, right? People have been trying to cure cancer, COVID, and problems forever. And it wasn't maybe a personal reason that allowed them to do it, but they wanted to solve a big problem that heretofore no one solved. So once you've dimensioned your problem, and that's not an easy thing to do, you might take 1 or 2 slides to do it, and you want to show that it's a big problem, size of the market, then you're going to talk about your specific solution, right? And in order to do that, you need to make 2 or 3 slides. What is your specific solution, and how does it work? Okay, so we're going to get to all of this, and I'm going to show you examples. In order to make that, it's called product market fit. So you need to convince me. We'll go back to Uber because it's such a clear example. I'm sure you know now Travis Kalanick, and there's a series about it. There's a movie about it. Why did he come up with this idea to create a GPS-based taxi, right? He also started defining the size of his market. And he said, it's not just people that are looking for this specific cab, it's anyone that's looking for a ride, even people that take buses. So he started building the market. And he started with a beachhead market, which is San Francisco, people that want to get a taxi quickly, and they want to find out in advance how much it's going to cost, and they want it to be clean. And Travis said, I think it's going to be, unfortunately, I'm into equity, but he said he suggested a guy and a millennial that was getting out of work at the end of the day on Friday, was meeting his buddies in a bar and wanted to get there quickly. So, but he communicated, this is in his second deck, he communicated exactly who the person was that he envisioned was his end user. So that's really important. It shows that you have a link in your brain and you've really figured out who that person is that's going to buy my product. And then how many of these dudes that wants to get to a bar in San Francisco, how many are there and how much money are they willing to pay? And that's your beachhead first market. You know, you're probably going to go to other cities and also allow women and people that are over millennial age to be in that market. So you're going to gradually show that your market's just, the first market is specific, it's beachhead, and then it gets larger and larger. A specific market and a total addressable market. And we're going to get to these concepts shortly. Okay. Data, right? So you're going to source not too much detail in a deck, but you're going to show that you really understand the numbers and they're verified. And you're going to have some footnotes, probably an appendix in your deck, but it's very important to do this. Also, in my class, I love my students, well, I insist on it, but I love students to do interviews, right? Go on the street in the rain on a Friday night at 5:30 in San Francisco and interview people that are looking for a cab. Would you pay $8 to go 22 blocks from Market Street to Sandstone Street in downtown San Francisco? And you learn, right? You learn by interviewing your end user. Okay. Let's review how to define your market. So there is a company that actually we invested in. It was a student from Babson, and she had worked in retail and had an aha moment. She had 2 kids at home under the age of 5, and she realized that she kept buying toys for them, but they didn't use the toys. You know, they used them for a while, and she had a big pile of toys, and they're expensive. So she decided to basically use the rent the runway concept and have toy rentals. Okay. And now, she did an incredibly good job of launching this company. So here's her use case. And we're not going to get into, I'm telling you the problem and the solution, and I'm going to show you the deck. But she knew that in her mind, they had to have a relatively high household income, right? Because she was looking at beautifully crafted wooden toys, high-end toys, but people were still focused on not spending all that money and wasting it. So she wanted people with a household income of 100 grand that had at least one child under 5 and that were in 4 SMSAs, regions, geographic regions. Okay, so that's her persona. And she got so specific that she was able to actually dimension it in terms of the color. You know, that's her representation, because she was a color. And she specified that she's 33, and she actually named her. And she named her son. And I used BU because that was the last lecture I should have changed it today to UMass. Sorry. But she specified exactly who the end user was, which makes people pay attention. She knows what she's doing. Okay. Would-be entrepreneurs who are not able to name their customers aren't ready to start a business, right? So you have to really understand that product market fit. You'll hear that term a lot, especially if you've already launched. I think some of you are in the process of launching a business, but you're going to hear it. And when you go before investors, they talk about it all the time. Okay, so let's talk about how Shiva dimensioned the market. How did she size it? You know, this is not an easy thing to do. So she had to convince the investors that this market was big enough to pay attention to and to give her money, and she attacked it, she could make money. So there's 2 ways to do it. So she said, what if all of these households in these 4 regions each bought a product? So she said that 15% of all households that have at least one child under 5-year-olds, 4.5 million in the United States. And in those 4 targeted areas, there was 450,000 of those households. Okay. The box cost $25 a month. So if each bought your product, it would be $135 million market, right? So that's called a bottoms up approach. So if you right. And then the sanity check is how much do people spend on toys every year? So people that spend money on toys for kids under 5, that equals $5 billion a year. And they assumed that based on very credible research, that 9% is forecasted to be in the toy rental market. It's that's not a great number because it was a kind of a new concept, renting toys, but there was actually data that some research organization had done. Okay, so of that $450 million spent on toys, 225 million, 50% of that would be in the over 100K, right? And half of that market is in the 4 big regions of the country. So that's $112 million. And that compares pretty favorably to, it's 83% of the number before, right? 135 million. She came up with 112 million. So you get a sense that that's reasonable, right? It has to be reasonable, it has to be logical. You guys probably don't even know what this creature is, pets.com, but pets.com was a classic example. They did a Super Bowl ad. They had raised money and they did this big splashy ad. They probably spent, I don't know, close to $50 million, something crazy. But they probably should not have used the Super Bowl to advertise because they didn't really, that's probably not their market. It's a much more refined market. And they had to spend money on all of those people watching the Super Bowl as opposed to their targeted audience. So we're going to go spend more money. So product market fit, as I said, is essential. You're going to get this deck. And it's, you can see what that pyramid looks like, right? All the way down to your target customer, value proposition, having to serve a need and then reach that target. All right, so another big one is, all right, so Travis Kalanick, Uber, who is he competing with? Who's Uber competing with? If you don't very specifically say in your deck and tell your investor who else is out there, right? Do you have a wide open market? Well, nobody does. There's always some kind of competition out there. Okay. And you have to articulate what your attributes are. What is your secret sauce? What do you have that others don't have? And you do it. This is the most effective way to do it. And I'm sure some of you, and I apologize if some of you have already taken entrepreneurship and you say, I understand this, but it's important to always review what the best way is to say, you know, what distinguishes you, what sets you apart from the crowd. So there's, if you say, going back to, well, Uber, sorry, it's so easy. Convenience and cleanliness. Those are my 2 attributes that I'm going for. So if attribute 2 is convenience and attribute 1 is cleanliness, it means that number 4 is clean, but it's not convenient. Number 1 is convenient, but maybe it's not clean. And then you're going to stick yourself up in that way up there. I'm convenient and I'm clean. That is how you nail discussing your competition. And you're going to mention those names, right? This is an Airbnb. This was in their original pitch deck. Of course, they used two attributes. I would normally ask you what they are, but I don't want to interrupt the flow here. So it's affordability and it's online, which was a really big deal. Airbnb almost failed because it was affordable, but you literally, when you were staying at some studio apartment in New York, the owner came to the door at the end to get your credit card. It was not online. And people hate doing that. And they almost failed, and they got some consulting that said, you need to make this online. This has to be seamless. It has to be friction free. And then things turned around rapidly and they became massively valuable. Okay, so now that we have figured out what the problem is, what the solution is, the product market fit, how big the market is this worth going after? We have to decide, we have to tell the venture capitalist or the judges at the pitch competition how you make money, right? How can you charge for it? Are people willing to pay? So we need to do a deep dive, and we'll do a quick dive on this, right? How are you planning on getting customers' attention, right? CAC, you'll hear the phrase CAC, customer acquisition cost, really important. You know, you can do what they call SEO marketing. You can do a lot of Google's. You want to have a high ranking in Google and other digital media. You can use influencers. You can put up ads on billboards or in news magazines, but you have to figure out what the cost is to get a customer and make sure that customer is going to pay enough so that you have a sustainable business. Okay. And it's hard. This is another hard one. And it's a reason that many businesses fail, because they didn't really figure this out. They didn't charge enough, or their product was too expensive and the competition would smoke them. And so they just couldn't get their product to market. Okay, so here is another biggie. In order to convince the market, the consumers, that you are financeable, you have to show that, yes, we did the interviews and we got great validation. We actually are beta testing it in a market or with one customer, or maybe it's a B2B business, and that gives people confidence. And we come back to the team, right? Who's there? We like to put pictures of the team and where they've worked, what their skill sets are, to some extent, what schools they attended. Sometimes it gets too dense. We'll go through that. But people want to know who you are and who's going to execute on this plan. And if you don't have a team, you know, we'll have maybe one founder, and then we'll have an org chart with blank boxes so that you can convey that you understand that you need a chief marketing officer and a biz dev person and eventually a CFO and a CTO, right? But you can leave the boxes blank. It's a team sport, right? Really bad idea when a founder, and there have been very famous founders that are so full of themselves that they talk about themselves and not this team. Founders want to hear that there's this team effort. Well, all these people with very specific skill sets that are going to deliver. Okay. Right. 2 founders, 3 co-founders. Financials. Oh God, here's another tough one. So I was telling some of the crowd on the phone before you guys came on that I taught WinLab at Babson for a while, which is people that have already gone to school. They've been working and they quit their jobs and they are starting a company. And I had fantastic students, all women. The biggest bugaboo for them was, oh my gosh, I don't want to do a financial model. Well, why? It's intimidating. I don't really feel like doing a financial model. It's essential. Your financial model shows what's going on in your brain, right? How you envision this, how this thing rolls out. And it doesn't have to be difficult. I actually created a simple Excel spreadsheet that they could use, right, in the future. And most of them said, it's so easy. I don't know why why I was so intimidated. Really important to lay out a financial model. You know, you can use templates, really simple. And I know most of you are probably really good at building models, but sometimes there are some of us that get intimidated. It's the language of business. And when you wake up in the middle of the night and you think, you know what, if I opened in Atlanta in addition to Chicago, how much would that cost? And you start thinking in terms of your model. Okay. So we're going to put, this is going to be in your deck, 3 years max, right? This is early stage. We're not going to make it too dense. Charts, yeah, I just like 1, right? Maybe 2. And then what are your KPIs, right? Your key performance indicators. Well, sales, right? How many customers you have, how much it costs to get those customers, and how much money you make, or what you obviously probably have losses the first year unless you found some fantastic business, and you show those critical variables. And then goals, right? You're going to have projections. We think we can do this. Hockey stick's dangerous, but show, like we did in the example of the toy box company, realistic goals. How do you penetrate? You know how big the market is. How are you going to penetrate it? How much do you think you can grab out of that market? And how much does it cost you to grab it, right? Yeah, don't let it be intimidating. I do this all the time because I cannot believe how many smart people I talk to that just don't want to do it. All right. And I get into the weeds here. We don't have to, for the purposes of this, we only have about 10 more minutes. And I want to, but there's a lot of things that you will cover. And I'm just going to put this up as a placeholder. You can return to it. Okay, so we talked about this CAC, we talked about his customer acquisition cost, long-term value, right? If I'm working my tail off to get one customer to sign up for my subscription service, and they only sign up for 6 months and it cost me $20 to get them, but they only gave me $10 in revenue, that's a really bad model. I'll go broke really fast. So you kind of have to see what the value of obtaining that customer is, how long they'll stick around, and how much they'll generate for you in the way of revenue, right? Sorry, I got lost. So sanity checks, we talked about that. Burn rate, churn rate, monthly recurring revenue. We will get into burn rate is just how much you're bleeding every month, right? If you have $100 coming in the door, but it's costing you $200 to run the business, you're losing $100 a month. And if you only have $500, you have a 5-month runway and you'll be out of money in 5 months. So you better either make more money or go find some outside funds. Okay. MRR, this isn't essential for this today. Okay. But you should consider this when you write your pitch deck. And be honest where you are. We're an early stage company. We haven't yet launched. We're in beta. We think we're 6 months away. Tell the truth and be conservative, because even if you raise money and it takes 6 months to get the product to market, it's better than saying, I'm pretty sure we can do it in 3 months. Death knell. Don't do that. Okay, and that's how we look at companies: freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, right? An idea versus beta versus proof of concept. You're getting up there, you're starting to generate capital, and then seniors are you're off to the races. You proved your model, and now you're raising all kinds of money. Yeah. Show the inner workings of your mind. I know that's naughty, sorry. But well, investors do judge you by what you say you're going to do versus what you do, and that's only in your model. Finally, don't use too many bullet points, right? 20 slides or less. It should say making the pitch. Oh yeah, the mistake is making it more than 20 slides. Small font. People are my age that are in VCs. Do not use little, tiny fonts, 5, 6 fonts. It makes people crazy. And keep it clean and beautiful. Don't make it too complicated. All right. So I think we've learned a bunch, and I'm going to keep going. This is my corny. I'm not going to show you all this. Yeah, we do this to get people, but that's what you learned, right? Your idea, the people that are going to launch this product, market fit, business model, execution, your financial model, and then you're going to pitch this. And it's the Rocky theme in the background, but I won't play that for you. Okay, so let's look at a few decks, and I'm going to zip through this quickly, but I'd love your comments at the end of it when we have Q&A. Okay, and I'm not going to tell you, it's pretty obvious, but not, some of them are not so obvious. Uber. Okay, let's start with Uber since I'm obsessed here.
Okay.
Hey everybody, put your phone on mute. Put your computer on mute. Okay, so this is their very first pitch deck, and you guys tell me what you think. Because I use this in class, I've written some stuff on the deck itself. So now they're setting the problem, right? They're setting the tone, setting the stage for the problem. Cabs in 2008. And they're saying that they use inefficient technology. There's no two-way communication. Not exactly right. Radio dispatch is two-way, and they're crowned victorious. People get cabs by putting their hands up, and they don't use GPS. Well, no, nobody used GPS then for cabs. And these cabs are driving around and they are trying to get a fare. So there's a lot of dead time, right? They don't know where the drivers are. So they're suggesting a bunch of problems here. There's 4 or 5 problems that they've spelled out. And now we're going to keep going on the problem, right? Taxi monopolies reduce the quality of service. They're expensive. These medallions in those days, not much. Mute. Sorry, mute. Joyce, mute. Joyce, mute.
And I got it in my app. I ordered
Joyce, mute your phone. In any case,
and it is matcha. It was green, but it was also.
All right. I'm going to try to keep talking over Joyce. You might.
Joyce, can you please mute yourself?
Maybe admin can mute Joyce.
It was green, but I'm like, I'm not drinking
Oh
it.
boy.
I think it's bad.
Oh boy. I'm just going to.
I'm unable to mute her.
You can't mute her.
Hot
There we
matcha.
go.
It don't say green tea. It say hot matcha. Matcha latte.
Hey, she's ordering matcha.
Latte with
Yes,
milk.
sir. Yes, sir.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you.
Joyce, can you please mute yourself?
Matcha latte with milk.
Okay. Sounds like it's quiet now. So they're still dimensioning all these problems, right? How expensive medallions are. By the way, medallions now are very much less expensive because of Uber. And now ta-da. So on the third slide, is that the third slide? Yes. No, fourth slide. Ta-da, Uber. And they tell you what, their solution, fast and efficient. And they're also telling you their market. They're going after professionals. It's convenient, right? And it's using some technology. They haven't told us yet what it is. And they're like NetJets and car services. So they're kind of going fancy. NetJets being, I think some of you know what it is. It's kind of private jet service. That's like oh, Joyce, you're back again. Okay, now we have, and then it's another slide of just attributes, right? And other solutions. One click on your phone and you got the cab. You don't have to hail it from the street. Guaranteed pickup. Oh, and you see photos of each other, right? So there's a safety issue. Respectable clientele. So they're getting a little fancy. One-click hailing, fast, luxury automobiles. Those were the days they were just going to use Mercedes. And rate your trip, which turned out to be a very important aspect. And geo-aware auto dispatch. So they finally say, this is their holy grail. We're using GPS, right? And then the operating principles. So they're kind of showing you with their mission and it's still more about attributes. And they show a screenshot, which if you have a company and a product that is an app, it's always good to put it up on the screen, right? Make a slide of it. use cases. So who the end users are. So these are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? People going to bars, people that don't want to park, airport, commuters, moms, and elderly. More about benefits. So it's kind of scattered. So
Yeah.
but I want you guys to tell me afterwards, oh, I hope Joyce gets her coffee, her matcha. Environmental benefits. So that's a whole other thing, right? That's a whole other element, was environmental. Then they skip to Lexuses and kind of green Mercedes. Okay, so it's premium, but it's also low MPG. This is now their market. They're going to show you that they're just going after San Francisco and then Manhattan. And the technology is massive, right? So they mention it. By the way, we use GPS. And they do show this the size of the market, which is critical, right? Because they thought that they could make a dent in it. I think you'll like this one. Okay, so those are the cities that they're eventually going to nail. There's San Francisco, New York, LA, Chicago. So there's 7 markets. And then they say, we can be a market leader. We can do $1 billion. Or we're just going to be a tiny 10-car company. So they were honest. And by the way, they was gutsy to say $1 billion. And they got there 7 years later. And they're at over 15 billion now. Okay, this was a big trend. So they knew they were riding this trend. And they kept going. This is their future, right? Their milestones and the future. This is going to what they're going to do in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. More ideas. They just kept throwing it up on the screen. They remind you it was location based, and that was gigantic. And that was their milestones and roadmap. And now, of course, sorry. So we need to, so why don't we open it up for Q&A? We'll do a couple more. Would anyone like to comment on what we've heard so far in the deck? So I can have a sip of water. And Joyce, oh, good. Joyce, I hope you got your matcha. Anybody? Questions, comments? Was Uber a good deck or a bad deck?
I think it was a great deck, and we have a few questions in the chat.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me jump onto that.
So one question is by Jess.
Yeah, I can ask my question.
Okay, great.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you so much. I had a quick question. So I currently work in software engineering management, and I'm not the greatest developer, but I've developed an app and it's not super great, but I do want to show as part of my deck, sort of my my proof of concept or my prototype. Would I be able to do that without a fully greatly functioning app? Could I talk about the things that it will be intended to do once I would get more funding to hire better developers than myself?
Absolutely. Often founders are not the ultimate developers, right, of the product. That's why they hire more a team, and when they raise money, they can then afford to bring in highly specialized tech or whatever they need. And yes, you can do a schematic. You can show that you perceive that there was a problem or there was an opportunity. And schematics are great as long as you keep them simple, because a lot of VCs are generalists, especially in the first pitch and an early stage. So you're looking for seed money. And I think that's a great idea. Always.
Thanks so much, Barbara.
Sure, Jess. Anybody else? Anyone want to dump or extol the Uber pitch deck? Dump on it or love it?
Anne-Marie, I think you had a question in the chat.
Yeah, my comment on it was that, first of all, because I knew it was Uber, I was kind of relaxed a little bit about it. But if I had never known who this company was and they were pitching this idea to me, there was way too much text on the deck. They didn't grab me at the beginning. you know,
Oh.
like they didn't really get me excited about it. And so that would probably be my biggest kind of critique. And they were okay at telling you what the problem was, but I didn't really feel like it was like a big call to action. Like there was no sense of urgency around it. So there was no like energy or emotion. That was just kind of my immediate response.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It wasn't that polished. It was kind of like it sounded like a bunch of guys, because they were, just kind of throwing stuff up on the whiteboard, right? See what would stick. Yeah, I mean, they never took probably a course in entrepreneurship. I guess they didn't have to because they're all gajillionaires now.
Yeah.
And they were lucky. They're also lucky, right? And they were smart. They were smart, but it was not a polished pitch deck. And it's so many problems with it, which is why people like me that teach entrepreneurship and how to pitch love leading with that, because it's fraught with problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, Anne-Marie. Anybody else? I'll keep going if not. Okay, just jump in. All right, I have to go to the next one and it's giving me a hard time. Why is it frozen? Okay. Other companies, Coinbase. Yeah, so I covered crypto. This is early in crypto, and I'm just going to zip through it. Coinbase has raised almost $500 million, and their valuation is, you know, it fluctuates because it's crypto, right? And so this is, you know, this was 10 years before it took off. New digital currency, instant. So their attributes right out of the box: instant, international, no transaction fees. All right, so they're really using it as a currency. You know, today a lot of these currencies are used as trading platforms, right? They're targets to trade. So they're going with international, new digital currency. This was their growth. I'd love to see it now, but this was all back 10 years ago. And they show that there's traction, right? They're going to go right to traction. They're not really showing their solution per se, other than they are a cryptocurrency and it's international. But this is, you know, I don't want to influence you, but they're throwing a lot of stuff up there. Early adopters, international payments, virtual goods, peer-to-peer. Sounds like a late night, infomercial. Microtransactions, e-commerce. So they show you a lot of things that it can be used for, right? And I think, yeah, they're showing you the competition, but one could confuse that, conflate that with their offering, but they show others. And again, you got to squint, which I don't like, because I'm a woman of a certain age. I don't want to squint. Elegant. So you get, so to your point before, Jess, you can show what you're developing. We don't know how far along they were. And they compare themselves. Their Coinbase is to Bitcoin as iTunes is to MP3, right? So it's like Rev 5 of some Rev 1, and they're launching crypto users into the future. They have traction. They're doing transactions, so they're probably just about to make money. This is crazy. This chart is all bubbles. I don't understand it, but it must be meaningful. And then here's another one. Here's a deck pitched a couple of months ago. Oh, seed tag. Yeah. So it's kind of a good looking deck. They use a lot of terminology. Yeah. Oh, another thing, acronyms. Don't use acronyms because it makes people that are sitting in the VC chair feel stupid, or they have to ask, what's a CTR? What's a VTR? What do you mean by viewability? Always be clear, right? We don't like acronyms. They're inside language, insider's language. Share what things are, so everybody feels that they're part of the, they're in the know. All right, so you're going to get this in your deck. It's kind of zany. Liz. Okay, how to pitch your pitch deck. Okay, so we've seen the pitch decks. this is kind of going to be the final here. There's an example of how to pitch your pitch deck. I won't go through it because we're going to run out of time, but this is a good one. And I use this for my classes. Just to review, right? If you're not solving a big problem, skip it, right? Unless you're, again, it's not for profit, or you're very wealthy and you're and you don't need money. The solution, right? These are more examples. I just kind of get into the weeds quickly. Don't be complicated, as I said, when you pitch. This is what I was talking again to Jess before about how to do a screenshot. This is how not to do a screenshot. And it's just crazy. It's insane. And yet they raise a lot of money. Okay, so don't listen to me. But you have a better chance of raising money early if you have a good pitch deck. This is not a good one. Yeah, this is back from Airbnb in the beginning. That's a pretty cool slide. It's clear. This is not good. Standard Treasury, it's another company. I'm just going to take you through a few quickies. The gradients. You have to, just. I'm going to skip this one. I think we're done. I think I'm done with this. There's a lot of pitch decks in here that I want you to look at, and then I kind of tell you what I think in most of them at the end. All right. So let's stop now, and I'll keep going if there aren't questions, but I imagine you guys want to talk a little bit about this. And ask away. Come on, you must have questions. But everybody understands it. You're good. You don't need to discuss it.
Maybe I can ask one question. Hi, I'm Elif, by the way. I'm not native speaker, and do you think it's a problem because I cannot, express myself with fancy words? It's like maybe flow could be problem. For example, I can give you one example. I'm not gonna tell my business idea, but it's a parking app project, and I want to start with the climate change, but I cannot connect the two stories because, as you can see, it's like, I cannot express myself with fancy word. What do you recommend? Is just, should I watch lots of good pitch? Is like, should I write down my script? Yeah, this is my problem.
I think I'm so glad you asked this question, because when I gave this lecture not too long ago I would say the crowd was about 90% English as a second language group. And in teaching at UMass Lowell is a lot different than when I was teaching at Babson and MIT, because I have UMass Lowell is a lot of first-gen college students, and many English is not their first language. And what I say is, that's fine. This is a very diverse world that we live in, especially in Boston and New York and the two coasts. What you need to do is you have to solve for it, right? So you can't get rid of an accent, and you can't make English feel as comfortable as your native language. The right thing to do is to really write out your presentation and rehearse it and rehearse it and rehearse it. And yes, in Q&A, people are much more accepting of diversity, and English is not a native language. But I recommend you write a really good pitch deck and you rehearse the pitch deck and take your time when someone asks you a question at the end of it. But it is absolutely, at Rice University, I would say more than half of the presenters, and these were people that got winnowed down to 46,000, more than half were people that were not Americans and English was not their native language. So yes, do I pronounce it Elif?
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
So definitely rehearse. Stand in front of a mirror. Stand in front of your roommate or your significant other or your aunt or someone on Zoom, and just rehearse it.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much.
Good luck.
It was very useful.
Good luck. No, good luck. More questions. I don't bite. You can ask anything.
Hi, Barbara. Can you hear me?
I can, Elizabeth.
Okay. I just have a question about being realistic for investors. So if you're doing kind of a research and development startup, and you kind of have, big market and a good idea and, all those kinds of characteristics. And if things go well, you can hit those goals, but, I don't want to be I want to be realistic.
Right.
If things don't go well, how much longer will it take to get to those points and things like that. I guess that's kind of my question, is how to show the big vision, but be realistic and address the path to take.
Absolutely. Matthew, could you just mute yourself? Thank you, Matthew. So most early stage companies start out with, I am going to, these are my financial projections. I'm going to hire a team next year. This is our milestones, and they pivot constantly. They're constantly tweaking their estimates, even their markets, right? Maybe Uber maybe San Francisco was the first market and they thought they were going to go to Dallas next. And Dallas was a disastrous market for some other reasons. People pivot, companies pivot. And the measure of a successful and a lasting entrepreneur is being able to be versatile and flexible, and be able to change quickly when you see things aren't going right. But anticipating it and then doing the hard stuff and rebooting, right? Rebooting for reality. So it's a great question. A lot of founders fail because they don't. They stick to it. They're stubborn. Pivoting is a word I don't like to use because it makes venture communities' head explode. It's like, oh, pivot. Oh, I don't want to hear about another pivot, because their heart sinks. They think they're going to lose their money. It's not pivoting, it's adapting to what you see on the margin, the delta, right? So it's what an intelligent entrepreneur does constantly. Great question.
So, in the initial pitch, though, should you just go with a kind of realistic expectation of your market forecast and all that stuff, if things go well, and then only address it if they ask, like in 5 years, if research isn't going well, what are you going to do, but not mention it in the initial pitch. I guess that's what.
Well, you have to speak with confidence. You do enough research and you do enough interviews. That's why you do field interviews. Then you can speak with authority that you have a very high degree of confidence that there's product market fit, that you're creating a product that is going to be in demand. Yeah, things change, but you have to be confident, and you have to show your research and the underpinnings of why you feel so confident in starting the business.
Okay.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Go for it, Elizabeth.
We're just a little over time,
Okay.
so
All right.
thank you so much, Barbara. This was so insightful, and I'm seeing all the comments in the chat. It's everybody has loved the topic, and everybody's asking me for the slides and the recording. So
Yeah, I'm happy to share my slide deck.
great. So
All right.
I'll have the slide deck and the recording shared to all of you by tomorrow. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much, Barbara, for giving us this insightful presentation.
It was my pleasure. Good luck to everybody.
Thank you. Good luck. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Barbara.